Hello, friends. This is Seth from Engage Podcast. Hope you're doing good. Just want to remind you real quick, if you haven't already, subscribe to wherever you're listening to this podcast as of now, whether it be on YouTube, Spotify, Google, wherever. Just hit subscribe. That way, every time we come out with a new episode, you get notified, and it's right there on your phone. Simple, it's easy. It's right there. Make it easy for yourself. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. The link for that's down in the information box, show notes, whatever you want to call it. And if you do that right now, we're doing a promotion right now that every person who subscribes to our YouTube channel, their name gets put into a hat. And at the end of the summer, so the end of August, the names are going to get picked. And if your name gets picked and you live in the local area, you will have an opportunity to be on the show. How cool is that? And if you don't live in the local area, then me and Anthony will send you a book completely free with our initials. I don't know if it's worth anything, but our initials in the inside cover, and that will be sent directly to you. So by pushing subscribe on the YouTube page, you either have a chance to be on the show or get a free book. It's a win-win for you. So there's nothing to lose, only something to gain by hitting that subscribe button. And also, you get just unlimited content from everything that we have going out. So like right now, Tuesdays are the sermon recordings from Sunday. Wednesday is Pastor Anthony's From Print to Action, which is like a book review where he takes a book that has greatly influenced him and he summarizes it and then applies it to what the Bible says. And believe it or not, most of the time, actually, in fact, all the time, a lot of what these books are teaching, a lot of these self-help leadership books, just in general, a lot of these books, they're just teaching things that the Bible has been teaching for thousands of years. So he pulls it back to the Bible. It's a lot of fun. It's really, 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 really interesting. And then Thursdays are, of course, the Engage podcast. So if you hit subscribe, you're going to get notified for all those videos as well as the podcast wherever you're listening to this right now. All right. Also, if you haven't come out and checked it out yet, Sunday morning, 11 a.m., our outside service. It's amazing. It's so much fun. If you haven't come out yet, you don't know what you're missing. You got to come check it out. Sunday morning, 11 a.m. here at Faith Presbyterian Church. Our guest today, I don't know why I keep saying my guest, our guest today is an amazing individual. He was such a pleasure to have here on the podcast. His name is Jeff Linn. If you don't know Jeff Linn, you should know Jeff Linn. He is a fiery individual, so much passion. He works for Above and Beyond Navigational Coaching, and what he does is he helps students find out what they want to do with their life, and he coaches them in just achieving their dreams. And that's such a cool job. I wish I would have had that. It would save me so much time if I would have had a Jeff Linn in my life. But he just talks in general about his life, his struggles. And then he also talks to us about how he was on set for the movie Foxcatcher. There you go, Foxcatcher, sorry. And he was talking about his experience with talking to Steve Carell over a couple of hours, and Mark Ruffalo. This guy is just electric. So give it up for our friend, Jeff Linn.
The honor of sitting with Mr. Jeff Linn of Foundation Building Materials and Above and Beyond Navigational Coaching. Jeff, we are thrilled that you're here.
Thanks, Anthony, and thanks, Seth. I'm excited to be here, too, with you guys, and appreciate you thinking about me for the show.
So, Jeff, we were talking a little bit right before the show started, and you had mentioned that you're the shortest person we've ever had on the show.
Guaranteed.
Okay. And right before the show, we arm wrestled. And can you tell the audience who won that arm wrestling contest?
So, first of all, a short individual has a very low chance of ever beating someone that's as tall as you, Anthony. So, I'm kind of like a velociraptor, and my arms are really short, so I could really never beat you, even with a lifter. And even though I'm probably 3 times your strength, I still wouldn't be able to beat you, buddy.
Listen, let's not.
So what I'm trying to say is short people don't have the gift to really beat someone with really long arms like you, Anthony, in an arm wrestling match. So I wouldn't take you on.
Well, that's because I have Arnold Schwarzenegger strength also, and you're leaving that component out.
Okay.
Okay?
I'll give you that.
Look over here.
Oh, okay.
Seth, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
You're good?
I'm loving this.
So you just poured yourself a cup of coffee.
I did.
Yeah, what kind of coffee is that?
Death Wish coffee.
Ooh.
Can you believe that?
Death Wish.
In such an
You ever had it?
inviting environment.
I'm not a coffee drinker. My wife, Kateri, loves coffee, and I'm more of a tea guy.
Really?
Yes.
Death Wish is like, in my opinion, my brother gave it to me less than 2 weeks ago. I'm like, what kind of coffee is this? It's like strong, but it's not bitter. It's called Death Wish coffee, and I'm like, all right. And then for like the rest of the day, like I just had all this just this energy, and I was like, it has to be that coffee. And here it's the highest caffeine amount they could put into like coffee, and it's just I can't get enough of it.
Seth, how many milligrams are you throwing in there?
I don't remember. If I still had the box, I would.
I mean, you look like you're pretty hopped up, so it must be over at least 300, 400.
We're American. We don't know what milligrams are.
No.
There's only 3 countries that do it that do milligrams, and we're one of them.
What are the others?
Myanmar, which is now Burma, and the third one my wife recently told me, and I forgot.
Okay, that's fine. That's a cool fast fact. So everyone listening out there, you Google the 3 countries.
Find out the third one for me.
Let us know in the comments below.
My wife knows it.
So Jeff, you're sitting here. We know each other, but the folks out there may not know you. Talk to us a little bit about yourself. We mentioned a few of the places here that you're involved with. Talk to us about what that all involves and your passions.
I'm married of 14 years to my beautiful wife, Kateri, and I have 2 children. I have a 9-year-old named Cassia, and I have a 5-year-old named Donato. And all 3, with the exception of me and my family, are named after saints. Kateri, which is her feast day, is actually today, Saint Kateri Tekakwitha. Donato, saint, and Cassia, that's how we named my daughter. So all 3 named after saints, and then you have my name, which is Jeff, which means absolutely nothing. 0 significance. So everybody else in my family has some significant names. I do not. I'm originally from Pittsburgh. My wife is from Erie. We've lived in Mercer County since I've been 18. I've lived in Mercer County. I went to Teal College for my undergraduate degree, and I haven't left Mercer County since college. So I took a job at Teal when I was 21, and I worked there for 12 years. And then I worked in their enrollment management office. I coached college wrestling for 12 years. And then I worked at Kennedy Catholic for almost 5.5 years. And now I work at Foundation Building Materials, which is a publicly traded company. And we have 184 locations throughout the U.S. And I cover 22 of those locations. So we do acoustical ceilings, drywall, metal studs, tools, just about anything and everything. And we're the 3rd largest distributor in the U.S. So work for them, and I do marketing. I do strategic sales, and I train people on CRMs, which are customer relationship management systems. So Microsoft Dynamics.
Very cool.
And my side business, which you mentioned earlier, Anthony, is above and beyond navigational coaching. And realistically, it's my why. And that started about when I was 22 years of age, when I was working at Teal. And I would visit roughly 250 high schools a year. And I started noticing that as I met principals, as I met superintendents, as I met guidance counselors, that we had a really serious problem in our country. And every guidance counselor and every principal and every school, didn't matter if it was Cathedral Prep or Georgetown Prep or the city school in Pittsburgh or Washington, D.C., they all had the same issues. They weren't able to reach all their kids. They didn't really get to know all their kids. They had less guidance counselors than ever before. And the national student loan debt was only increasing. So, currently we're at $1.54 trillion, the student loan debt. And I've seen thousands of students, incur $70, $80, $90, $100,000 in debt. And essentially they're choosing the wrong major, choosing the wrong path, choosing the wrong schools because they can't make the informed decision. And a lot of these kids were like me, first generation student, didn't have a mom or dad who went to college, and they need help. They need guidance. They need coaching. And so for the past 17 years, I've helped thousands of students and families with their navigational coaching, and I just do it on the side. But my goal now is with COVID and some other things that have happened in our country, I've gotten really busy with it, and there's no guidance counselors now, helping the families physically. So I've been helping a lot of students and a lot of families just try to find their passion, get to know them, do personality testing, and then help them decide maybe trade school is the right option, or maybe the option of going to an Ivy League school is in your realm of possibilities, or maybe community college is the best bet. You can save 30 to 40 grand right off the top if you choose a community college. So really getting to know the student, getting to know the family, and looking into how much debt they have or how much they've saved for their child, and then kind of diving into that student's passions and then guiding them along the way. So that's my side business, and it's my why, and I love it. So, and my goal is to really help Mercer County. I really want to help our community, and I think when we live somewhere, that's all of our duties, is to do something big and to take part into something bigger than ourselves. And it's my why. I love helping kids. And as I walked in, Anthony looked down and he saw this letter, and he's like, "What's that?" And I said, "I just got a letter from a young man that I helped, and just 2 weeks ago, he found out that he got into his dream school of Notre Dame, and he got denied the first time. And weirdly enough, his middle name's Rudy." And I wrote to Father Jenkins, who is the president of Notre Dame, and I wrote him a letter about a year and a half ago. And finally, RJ was admitted. So he called me crying, and he wrote me this letter that I just got, and it's probably the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. So I was just reading it as I was coming in here. So it's pretty emotional, actually, but it is my why. So thanks for asking.
You keep on referring to your why. What is that? Tease that out a little bit. What does that mean? Where does that concept come from?
So I think at an early age, we get told when we're in high school that, to do what you love, or, find what you're good at. And I'll never forget this. I was 17, I was going to be 18, and my high school mandated us to go do a job shadow. And I thought at the time, CSI just came out. So I was like, yeah, man, I can do that. That'd be so cool. So I thought I could do that. Well, my strengths really didn't match that of forensic science. But when I was 18, I had to make a phone call. So I called the most famous guy in Pittsburgh. His name was Cyril Wecht, and he's a world-renowned forensic science pathologist, actually. And I called him when I was a young buck, and I said, "Mr. Wecht, this is Jeff Linn, and I'd really like to job shadow you to see if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life." He said, "Jeff, this is awesome. Come on down." So I went down to the corner building. I spent 2 of the most intense yet awesome days with Cyril Wecht. And he sat me down at the end of the 2 days. We reviewed the largest murder case in Pittsburgh at the time. It was eye-opening for me.
Remind us again, how old were you?
I was going to be 18. Okay. I was just turning 18. And after 2 days was over, he asked me what I thought. He said he got to know me relatively well in 2 days. And then he highly recommended me not going into that field. So this guy who didn't know me from Adam, he saved me. He saved my path of choosing the wrong college, the wrong major, because he said, "Listen, you're an extrovert. You get solid academic grades. You seem relatively smart. However, what I've learned from you, Jeff, is not this path. Forensic science is not what it's on TV. It's not your CSI. It's totally different. And he showed me that in 2 days, every aspect of what forensic science is.
Were you waiting for LL Cool J to come around the corner? Like, that never happened?
I love LL Cool J, but he never came. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it made me realize that, you know what, this guy's right. It's not the right path for me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that was critical for you.
Critical.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people come in and out of our lives, and that's what other folks help us shape our why. Mm-hmm. And it took him sitting me down saying, hey, listen, I think you got some other gifts, and I think you need to give those gifts in different directions. And that's when I started realizing that I wanted to help people, I wanted to coach, I wanted to guide people, and then I chose my college, my undergraduate college, which was Teal, and that kind of started me on my path. So I really have Cyril Weck to thank for that.
One of the things that I know about you have not mentioned, but I want you to talk about is you are a wrestler and heavily involved in wrestling. Talk to us about wrestling, what that means to you, what it has taught you, even some of your credentials. I know you've gotten pretty high up.
Yeah, wrestling, I started at the age of 6, and it's been a huge part of my life. It's taught me many life lessons. Failure is definitely one of them, and that it's totally okay to fail. In wrestling, it's almost impossible unless you're Cael Sanderson or Dan Gable, who were virtually almost perfect on the wrestling mats. We all lose. Mm-hmm. We're guaranteed to lose. And we will always have someone that's better than us. And wrestling at a young age taught me all of those life lessons, it helped me learn about healthy eating, helped me learn about winning, losing, team, working together as a team. And I was fortunate enough to wrestle in college, and I was fortunate enough to have some success in college, and I got to go all over the world and wrestle. I've wrestled in Bulgaria and Italy, and I was on a smaller little U.S. tour team for a summer, and I coached collegiately for 12 years, and I continue to coach today. I volunteer at Reynolds High School, and we've won the last 4 state championships. And again, wrestling is another one of my whys, and it kind of tags along with that, above and beyond coaching. Love to help people, love to coach people, but I love to just help young men and women understand the greatness inside them, and ultimately how they can be more than what they are today, tomorrow. And just to get them to believe in themselves. And once you get them to start believing in themselves, it's like the door opens. And I think then that's where, the faith component of it comes in. And that's where just having you as their coach in their corner, and even your position, Anthony, as a pastor, you're their coach. You're these guys' coach, and these parishioners coach, and they look to you, right? And that's such a beautiful thing, to have young minds and hearts looking at you and knowing that you believe in them. And I think that's what wrestling's taught me, and that's what life's taught me so far, is to try to be selfless. So I'm thankful for wrestling.
Having an opportunity to actually experience and do something, it made me think of a time in my life when I was a senior in high school, new to the faith, and I had a youth pastor, David Glass, at the church I was going to, but there was also the senior pastor, Don Jones. I didn't know him as well, good guy. And Pastor Dave had a youth Sunday, and he would always try to get the seniors to be heavily involved in the service. And he had picked me to preach. And I was new to the faith, and I was scared, and I prepared like 1,000 days, and I made sure it was all right. And I remember after that experience, the senior pastor took me to Haas's restaurant. You ever hear of Haas's restaurant?
Great restaurant.
Huh? The one in Newcastle. It's closed now, but there's another restaurant there now. But anyway, we're sitting there, and we're eating. And of course, being young, I just thought the point was just let's go eat. But I'll never forget, he stopped his meal, and he looked at me, and he said something like, I don't know you that well, but I know you well enough, and I don't know how many talents you have in life, but I do know one thing. When you stood up and preached, that's a calling on your life. And
That's awesome.
I'll never forget that. It was a moment that, like, your friend told you, that stepped in and he sort of was the rudder to the ship that put your life in a certain direction.
No doubt.
And I hear you trying to do that with younger people. However, connected to that, there's an old saying that unless the student is ready, what is it? If the pupil is ready, the teacher will appear. Because I know people that are listening that can't have, they don't know any of those moments in their lives. And I always wonder to myself, is it them that's not open, or is it there's just nobody else out there investing in them? Because you had to be open to what that guy said to you, right?
Absolutely. Well, I think too, a lot of it for anybody listening, and even us, continually, we have to be patient with ourselves and we have to be patient with others. And, this letter that I just got from this young man, that was the one thing that I told him all the way through his journey. He, ever since he was 6, he wanted to go to Notre Dame, but I just kept telling him, you got that denial letter. That's really hard. It's hard on your heart. It's hard on your mind. But you have to be patient with yourself, and you have to be prayerful, and you have to be faithful, and just keep grinding and keep going. And he did. And he had that patient faith. And now, once he got this new acceptance letter that he wrote about, he, like I said, he called me in tears. And I think for him and what he wrote was, I was one of the few people in his life that continually believed in him. Continually, no doubt. And no matter the failure or the success, we have to do that with other people. And I think when we do that, we become better. We become more complete. And that's why we're here.
Mm-hmm. Let's think about wrestling a little bit. Give me your greatest lesson that you've learned in wrestling.
Okay. The greatest lesson in wrestling is that you will lose. You're guaranteed to lose. And it's okay to strive to be perfect, to not lose, right? That's what everybody wants to do. They want to do their best, compete, and you want to win. You want to get your hand raised. So I've learned that I will fail. It's okay to fail. I got to learn from the failure and to keep striving for what I wanted to achieve. So I did not win a national championship. So that for me was, at the time, it was a failure. I wanted to be a national champ. I trained to be a national champion, and I didn't do it. I was an All-American, but I wasn't a national champion. So at the time, I was devastated. I worked so hard, and I wasn't able to achieve what I worked for. But it's all good. And it allowed me to be motivated to continually help other young minds and hearts, help them realize the beauty of the sport, the fact that they're going to fail. It's okay to fail. Love you no matter what, as long as you're giving everything you have that God gave you. And I think as long as we're doing that, then we're moving in that right direction.
So when it comes to failure, at least for me, it's bad enough to fail. I think one of the worst parts of failure is you feel like now you have like a resume that has that failure forever written on it. How do you, having that lesson in failure, what wisdom can you give to people who are worried that failure is going to forever haunt them?
It's kind of like a sailboat. Once that wind changes and turns that sail a different direction, we have to quickly do that with whatever the result that we have in life. And, I fail every day. I feel like each day there's one point in every day where my son punches my daughter and just angry, and I didn't handle it the way I should have or I could have. So, as a parent, you feel like a failure sometimes. And then you just have to quickly let the wind take you in a different direction and let faith take you in a different direction, and then say, you know what? I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to shift a little bit. I'm going to change a little bit. I'm going to adapt a little bit. I'm going to listen a little more, talk a little less. And I think that peace and that quiet and just the patience, like I talked about earlier, I think just being patient with ourselves allows us to kind of see where we're at and to see our successes and most importantly, our failures and learn from them and realize that they're yesterday and then we're here today.
So we're here now. As you reflect on your life, who would you say have been the major influences in your life, and what are the reasons? What are the qualities that you admire about them?
I would have to say, it all stems back for each of us in different directions, but for me, my parents, fortunately, both of my parents are still living, and they taught me a lot about life and, always thinking, always thanking, and always doing what was right. So, thinking about others, thanking others, and doing what was right. And I think at a young age, I tried to start doing that, and I failed many, many, many times. But, I continue to try to do that. So obviously my parents, my wife, Kateri, huge influence in my life. One of the most authentic, kind, and loving people I've ever met. And she continues to influence me. Obviously Christ, which, has to be forefront. And another influencer that is kind of a non-human right now is St. Rita, who kind of turned my own journey and my faith journey 10 years ago down a different direction. So St. Rita of Cassia, my grandmother's name was Rita, and my daughter was life flighted to Children's Hospital. So my wife had a prolapsed cord at home and quickly life flighted down to Children's. And at the time, I was driving down to Pittsburgh, and we didn't have a name for it. We had Cassia, we had Maylee, and we had Adelaide. And I get down to Pittsburgh, and the doctors wouldn't allow me in. And at the time, my phone rang, and they said we needed to get over to the NICU, and that we needed to give her a name because she was going to pass away. And so at that moment, I kind of went numb. I left everything up to God. And at the very same time, I started texting people, and I started telling people what was happening, that we needed some prayers. And we realistically, we needed a miracle to happen for us. But I was okay. I was okay. My wife was still here in Farrell. I was down in Pittsburgh. And so at the time, 2 pastors and 2 priests that I didn't know gathered people in Greenville, and they prayed. There was about 40 people. And at the very same time all this was happening, my daughter's organs were shutting down. Everything was looking bleak. My mom was bawling. My dad was bawling. Everybody was crying. And I was just praying. And so all these people were praying, and then the doors of the church open up. And at the very same time, apparently, a young man who was 18 in Greenville High School died in a tragic car crash while this was happening to my daughter, Cassia. And so we named her Cassia, obviously, quickly, because she was supposed to die. And there was a novena said to St. Rita. And so all these people were praying for this young man who just passed away and my daughter, Cece. And quickly, within about 2 to 3 hours, the doctor called me back in. I wasn't allowed to be in there. The only thing I remember seeing, and it's etched in my heart, is they were hand pumping her little belly full of oxygen because she had nothing left. And 2 hours later, they said, we can't explain it. There's nothing, we've never seen this happen like this, but she's going to be A-okay. She's going to be just fine. So I think for me, the biggest influence, obviously, was faith in God. And I think there was some type of an intervention that happened with St. Rita and all those folks that were praying so hard to God and to everybody for my daughter and for this young man who just passed away. So it was a beautiful moment. And then when my wife came down 4 days later, it was another beautiful moment that we got to finally be together as a family. And I think for us, the other part is, we were expecting brain damage. We were expecting her to be severely, challenged, which we were still okay with that. And you saw her, she's awesome. So she's very intelligent. She's doing very well in school. And most importantly, she's kind and loving. So I think that's what we're the most proud of. So I think definitely faith. I mentioned earlier Cyril Weck being an influencer, my parents, my wife, my kids. And I think every day we have an opportunity to have a human in our lives influence us, like a random person. So wherever I'm at, whenever I'm different places, I always try to look at that person or that place as an opportunity to influence me in some direction, and hopefully it's a positive one. Some aren't so positive, but I think we all have that great opportunity. So in terms of celebrities and former people, Abe Lincoln for sure.
Don't say me.
And sorry, Anthony, you are a really good human, but I don't know you that well. No, you guys are both influencers, man. We're here today, so you guys are influencing each other, influencing me. So yes, you guys are. Yeah.
I like the way you recovered there, and
I'll try to recover.
Put the spin on that.
Yeah, you got to spin and you got to juke and jive a little bit, Anthony.
What is it about Lincoln?
If you're whatever you are, be a good one. That's what he says. Whatever you are, be a good one. So I think that's where we all are as people. We have to determine what we are, what direction we're going, and be good. Do the best we can to get there. So for me, he's definitely one of the greatest. Nelson Mandela, MLK, Roosevelt. I think Louis Pasteur is another cool one. Terry Fox is a really awesome one. He's a Canadian who continually had. I don't know if you ever heard of Terry Fox.
Tell us about him and what is it about him? What's the quality?
So Terry Fox was a Canadian, and he was diagnosed at a young age of cancer, right? And he was really hardworking. Dad worked in a mill, and he ended up always achieving beyond what everyone told him was possible. He's a little dude. You can't make the basketball team being that short. He did. Then he ended up getting a basketball scholarship to college, right? And then, boom, gets a leg pain. They got to take his leg. Cancer. Then sets another goal for himself. He just kept setting goals. He died at, 19? I think 19 he was, 20. And he set a goal to run across Canada and raise money for cancer. And he raised millions and millions. This is in the 1980s.
I think I heard of this guy.
Terry Fox, you gotta look him up. He wore the same T-shirt every day. He had cool curly hair, and he ran across the whole country and got people inspired and hope and motivated. And he got the whole country invigorated, not just Canada, but the world. And money just started flowing in terms of cancer research because of him. So, yeah, Terry Fox for sure. I think Dale Carnegie is another big one, and I love his books and how to influence people. I think influence is a key factor in how we can motivate others. So he's another big one. Celebrities, Steve Carell and Mark Ruffalo, Mr. Rogers. Yeah, those kind of pop to mind. Mark Ruffalo, Steve Carell, those guys are really good human beings, and I got to spend a couple of days with those guys about 8 years ago, so I've probably celebrity-wise. What's that?
I said, really? You got to spend a couple of days with
Steve Carell? Yeah, I was an extra in a movie, and the movie was called Foxcatcher, which is a wrestling movie.
Yep.
And it was a really sad movie, but a true story nonetheless. And one scene, I was with Steve Carell for about 6 hours, so I got to know about him and his life, and I got to hang out with Mark Ruffalo, who, if you know, the Hulk, and all the other movies. Mark Ruffalo is a really good dude. Tragically lost his own brother. He's got a really unique story. But the whole week, what I learned from those two guys is they're just like we are. Their gift that God gave them took them down a different path, and it took another person to tell them and help them get into that direction, right? And that's how they got in those shoes, and that's how they are where they are, and just like where we are where we are. But those are really good human beings. And Steve Carell, everybody always asks me, they're like, dude, you got to hang out with Steve Carell? Was he funny? And I was like, he was really funny, but he was really well educated. He went to an Ivy League school and just a really brilliant guy. So, but you know what he said to me? And we were on set, I think, December 23rd. He said this to me. He said, look at where we're at. And I looked at him and I said, what do you mean? He goes, I'm here. My family's in California. He said, that's the drawbacks to the fame and the green, which is the money. He goes, I'm not with my family. He said, so it may look great, but there's moments that are really challenging of being an actor. You know, for us looking outside in, we just look at those guys and we're like, oh, they have it made. Everything's wonderful. But when you look it through their lens and their eyes, you start to realize that, you know, they also have some unique challenges. So those are some folks.
We're Office fans here. And Seth, is it true or false that did he end up leaving the Office because of he wanted to spend time with his family?
No.
Or is that just a rumor that I made up?
No, it was just a rumor you just made up.
Okay.
No, it was
just
an
made it
issue.
up.
It was an issue with NBC. That's why he left.
Okay.
Plus, I want to say he's still a member of the Writers Guild.
He is, yeah.
And he was really upset by the way that NBC was treating, like when the writers had their strike, NBC wasn't willing to pay them more. He was very upset about that. So I think it was a mixture of a couple things. But he was amazing in that movie, though.
Yeah, he really was.
He's really good at those drama acting. Yeah, so.
For those listening, tell us again the name of the movie.
The movie's Foxcatcher.
What is that about?
It was about two brothers who were both Olympic gold medalists in wrestling. And Bennett Miller was the director, so I got to meet him too. He was the director of Moneyball, and spend some time with him too, which was great. And I actually wrestled in the movie, which is funny and weird, but I got picked to wrestle. So one of my scenes was I was wrestling, and we were going full bore. So like we were literally going after each other, me and this college wrestler at the time, and I'm pounding him. I'm hitting him in the face and smashing him. And the director's like, yeah, you have to just go as hard as you can. Well, in wrestling, once you hit past the 6-minute mark and you're old like me, you start to get pretty tired. And so, but fortunately, the kid looked over at me and he goes, Coach Linn, he said, I am freaking tired. And I said, me too, man. Me too. And, you know, the director, though, has no clue because he's never wrestled. No one in the stands has ever wrestled. And, you know, they're all looking at us and we're dead tired. We could barely stand up. And unfortunately for me and 3 other Olympians that were all on the set with me, none of our scenes, those scenes got added. I was in 4 other scenes, but those scenes where we were hardcore wrestling all got cut. And Mark Ruffalo and Channing Tatum, they both had to learn how to wrestle. Mark had some experience, but Channing Tatum, no experience at all. So I give those guys credit for having to learn a skill that's really hard to learn, first and foremost, and to do it in a short period of time. So, but Mark Ruffalo did a really good job of kind of adapting and taking Dave Schultz. But Dave Schultz and his brother were Olympic gold medalists. Dave was murdered, unfortunately, by John DuPont. And John DuPont was the billionaire to the chemical fortune, DuPont Chemical.
Wow.
And he was a paranoid schizophrenic, total nutbag. And he became asphyxiated with the 2 brothers. He just couldn't get. So they lived on his compound in Philadelphia. He used to get the wrestlers and pay them, and they all lived there. So they, at the time, they were paid great amounts of money for being wrestlers. And they lived on his beautiful, beautiful ranch. And then he became, he kind of went off the deep end.
And who is Steve Carell? Is he portraying?
Steve Carell is John DuPont. So okay. Steve Carell is the individual who murdered Dave Schultz. So you talk about dark. This was his darkest role he's ever played.
Wow.
So he had to play, you know, a paranoid schizophrenic.
And he doesn't even look like him.
They put a prosthetic nose on him and a forehead. So he had like a little bit extra forehead and then a prosthetic nose.
Wow.
It was interesting.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Tell us about a hobby or some fun when you want to unplug. What do you do? What does Jeff Linn do?
Fun. I love to travel. travel the world with my family. I think that's what we really look at as fun. We just got back from vacation, so we love to vacation. We love to travel. We love to see the world. So that would be number one. I like to golf. I really love to golf. I was fortunate to play golf in high school and college, and obviously love coaching wrestling. I like weight training. I don't like arm wrestling, as I mentioned earlier, because we just can't beat you guys. And we also love taking in international exchange students. So throughout the course of the last 15 years, my wife and I have had probably 6 or 7 international exchange students in our home. Anywhere from a girl from Pakistan who was Muslim to a little girl who came to us when she was 15, and we had her in our home for 3 years, Bella. And we just talked to her actually last week, and she's in Portugal right now studying. So we love culture. We love to help out other students and help them see the beautiful parts of the United States and learn about their culture. So that's a little bit of fun. And I like to read. So I love reading. So
You walked in here with a book today.
that's for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's your favorite book of all time?
Oh, favorite book of all time. One of them actually is Remarkable by a guy named Dr. Randy Ross.
Okay.
And he consulted for Chick-fil-A for a while. He's good friends with the Cathy family. And he wrote a new book called Relationomics. Some of his writings, Michael Hyatt, I really love him too. John Miller. John Miller is incredible. He writes about personal accountability called QBQ, Question Behind the Question.
Okay.
He's a really good author. His dad was the head wrestling coach at Cornell University for 26 years.
Wow.
And his dad was a legend. So I got to actually know John Miller, and I got to know Randy Ross. So I got to know the two authors that I really love the most, which is really cool. I don't know Michael Hyatt, but I do know those guys. Peter Drucker, Hersey. I took a class for Paul Hersey. Kelly. Don Ruiz is pretty good too. But yeah, I like to read. My wife likes to read fiction. I'm not a fiction guy. Can't do it.
I can't do fiction either.
Can't.
Everyone makes fun of me because it's like you can read books on theology and just just not stories. But and I'm like I can't pay attention. I don't know what it is. It's just weird.
I'm with you, Seth.
It's the weirdest thing.
Does that
Like,
translate into movies for you too?
I love movies. I love movies.
I mean like the Matrix. Some people say I can't deal with that because that's
No, the more I love complicated. I love the art of a complicated like storyline because to me that's one of the reasons why I love movies like Inception,
Oh,
The Matrix, because to put that much thought into a
Film.
plot, like you could just do it the lazy way and just come up with like a plot and then be done with it. But those guys talk about their why. Like they put so much into one movie that it takes you multiple viewings to really understand what the person behind the directing, is like what they're trying to get at. To me, which is why you would think I would love that about books too. I just can't do it though. I don't know if it's just like a visual thing, but that's just me. So, 2 peas in a pod.
yeah, my man.
Did he give you a bunch of books to read? Because you're always looking for a new book to read.
I gave him one. I gave him Gordon
Was it
today. Strength Finders. Yeah, it's great. That's what I help the kids with too. The high school students, mostly ninth through 11th graders. So they find their strengths. They do Strength Finder. They do Hume and Myers-Briggs, and then they can start to determine am I an introvert, am I an extrovert, and then ultimately,
That's cool.
how do then we develop an academic game plan? And even if we don't, let's go on undecided. Let's make an informed decision so that we can help you make sure that you don't choose the wrong college, because 60% of the students right now, they switch majors. Mm-hmm. And then by switching major, that's $12,000. That's $12,000 per major switch. And that continues to add to that student loan debt that we talked about earlier. So
For guys like myself, I needed someone like you when I was in high school because I had no idea. I mean, I used to get so jealous because all my friends had some idea of what they wanted to do when they were like 9th grade.
Yeah.
And I was a senior in high school, like still not, I had no idea. And it seemed like everyone's advice to me was find out something that seems interesting and go to college for that. and if you don't like it, you can always switch your major. And it's like, that doesn't seem like it's a very good idea, you know?
And it's not a very good economic decision either.
Right.
And that's where kids in 9th and 10th grade need a human to come into their school and help them and say, listen, by switching majors, you're going to cost your parents and yourself X number of dollars. And maybe, just maybe, your parents have saved nothing. Mm-hmm. I know plenty of parents. I'm helping this state trooper right now with his daughter. And my first question to the parents always is, how much have you invested in your child's education? And when I hear that pause and that silence, I know the answer is no. And you got people making $150,000 a year, $200,000 a year that have invested nothing, that have saved nothing. So then every time their child switches their major in college, that's another 12, 13 grand that both they and their family are going to have to incur eventually. Mm-hmm. And so I always tell the students, if you're not sure still when you're 18, just go undecided, have an undecided advisor, continue to take these tests that we put you through, talk to some mentors, do some informational interviews, do some internships, do some job shadowing today, and that will help you determine. So what I did with Cyril Wecht is what I tell every student to do, whatever the major is. You want to be an attorney? Go down to the law firm down here and talk to these guys. Or you want to be hospitality management? Well, we'll get you over at the Avalon and talk to those guys about that and see if that's really going to be a good fit for you. Yeah. But they have to do it in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade.
Start early.
They
you
have
to get
to.
in there early. How do people, if a parent is listening to this, how do they get a hold of you? Do you have a website?
Yes. So I have my email address. So right now, for the last, having a day job, and I've always had a day job, this is kind of on the side. So I try not to take on any more than 5 clients at once because it's a lot of work. And right now I'm helping a family in China. I'm helping 3 families, that live in Punxsutawney. I'm helping one in Meadville. Just call me. You can email me. I gave you my cards. They can email me. But my website will be completed. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be completed actually in late August or early September. And I haven't hit go on the marketing side because I'm really afraid. Now, I have 2 other folks that are just like me that I trust and I love and I care about that can do it similarly like I can.
Yeah.
And have been in enrollment management and been in some of the things that I've been in. And so they're going to be my team members because I can't do it myself with the volume. So I'm going to be relying on them too. So I really, realistically, I can probably take on 1 or 2 extra families right now. But other than that, I really can't take on any more. But just call my cell phone, call my email, and I'll be excited to share my website once it's finished.
Yeah, circle back when we post this. We'll let you know, and maybe you can go in on the comments and add that stuff there.
That'd be great.
Gary V, he wrote a book called Crushing It, and I can't remember how to say his last name. It's some long, crazy last name, and I think I mentioned this before.
I think it's Verachek.
We'll go with that.
Just Gary V is how he, yeah.
Sounds better.
He writes about that. He writes about finding the person that's doing what you want to do, or someone that's super successful, and paying. He says pay them rent, sleep on their couch. You'll learn more from that. We just sat with John Sarandria.
Yep.
And he's done a lot of coaching in his life. You know who he had the opportunity of sitting with for a year? Jimmy Valvano.
That's very cool.
I told him we're going to have you on the show just to talk about that year.
That's very cool.
Right? But could you imagine that 1 year with Jimmy V? I got super jealous when he started talking about that.
You were on cloud 9. You were on
oh, man.
That's awesome.
There's just so much with that guy. Anyway, to your credit, the 2 things I like about what you're doing, the obvious ones I think are, 1, you're intervening early. How important is that? Because I think the listeners out there are going, everything you're saying is right. And then they say, I wish I had someone in my life then.
Yeah.
Right? And then the second thing is you're recommending them get out and do it. Go out there and actually do the work themselves because nothing's going to teach you like you shadowing that person.
That's right.
You're going to learn a lot. So that's it's really cool.
Well, even both of you, and not to take it off me, but on both of you guys, Seth, you're in youth ministry. same advice, do it early. And you're reaching these kids at an early age and an important part where their faith journey is developing, their whys are developing. So awesome work on your part, doesn't matter if we're 65 or whether we're 40, the opportunity to make positive changes in our life through faith and love and family and togetherness and community. And so you guys are doing great work. So kudos to you guys too for doing good work in our community.
You talk about faith. Share a little bit about your faith. Do you have a favorite Bible verse or a favorite book of the Bible, or is there a person in the Bible that maybe you identify with?
The Book of Wisdom. I really love the Book of Wisdom. I really don't have a favorite verse that I can say, but I like to read it. I don't read it as much as I would like to. I was in the habit for a long period of time of every morning and every night. Now I can't sit here on your show and say that I'm doing that every morning and every night, but I am digging into it. And weirdly enough, every time we have the opportunity to open it, it resonates in our heart, and God's working through the book, through our hearts to share some wisdom. And it always resonates 100% of the time. It always resonates to what's going on in my life or how my day is going to be. So I realistically just love when I do open the book and something great is going to come of what I read. So I really just love digging in and reading a page or two. So, I really think that is a very important part of continuing your faith journey. So as I mentioned earlier with the miracle story of my daughter, Cassia, you have to stay on it. It's like anything else. You can't let up. It's like the food you put in your body. If you're working out, if you're not working out, it's like anything else. You want to be good at something. You want to practice something. You have to practice something, and you have to continually hone your skills to get to where you want to be. And we're not where we want to be. I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm getting there, coming close.
Do you have any questions? I like to end with a couple questions, but I don't know if you wanted to piggyback off of anything.
I got one question for you guys. You guys were talking something about the Dutch angle a while back. I don't know about that Dutch angle, fellas. I mean,
all right. So this is an inside joke between me and Anthony. So he always likes to take his pictures sideways, like at an angle. Mm-hmm. And the one day I called him,
that in him.
And the one day I called him John Travolta. He didn't. I could tell by the look on his face he didn't get the reference. I said, "Have you ever seen the movie Battlefield Earth?" And he said, "No." He'd never even heard of it. And I said, "It's one of the worst movies ever made." And I said, one of the main reasons why that movie is unwatchable is because every shot is done in the Dutch angle. And I showed him what it looks like from the side, and ever since then, Anthony's like he's dubbed the Dutch angle as his.
I'm Mr. Dutch Angle, and I love the Dutch angle. One of the things we do is when we're done here, we're taking a picture.
Yeah,
we're Dutch angling it.
Dutch it.
He loves it. He loves it.
Give me a high five. Listen. You hear that?
Yeah, I hear it. It's
they
crisp.
heard it too. That means you committed to it.
I like it. That's a commitment.
So you've watched that movie?
I have.
Yes. And it is bad.
It's horrific.
It's a movie that you watch to make fun of.
Yeah, it's a really bad one. John Travolta's been in a lot of really good movies too, but that was a...
Give me your favorite.
Travolta or favorite movie?
Travolta.
Oh my God, Saturday Night Fever, man.
Mm-hmm.
But favorite movie?
No.
Good Will
Travolta.
Hunting.
Is it because you dance like him in that movie?
No, I can't. I don't think any of us could dance like him in that movie. He practiced for a long time. He was stellar back then. Yeah, we couldn't dance like that. But I do love to dance. That's another thing I didn't put on my love. My wife and I like to, we go to a lot of weddings. And I think we have 9 this year, but we love to dance at weddings. And weirdly enough, I've given a lot of best man speeches too, so that's another part of my side business. I write best man speeches for random people.
Really?
And I write eulogies too. So when I was 22, my family elected me as the eulogy guy, which I didn't even know what that meant. But I started to have to write poems for people who passed away in my family. So I started writing for, my grandfather, my aunt, my uncle, and it's just kind of continued. And so every funeral that I go to, chances are I'm up there speaking about the person. So I don't know why that happened, but another one of those things that just kind of rolled into my lap. And I love best man speeches, and I love eulogy speeches, because like all of us, someone's going to have to be speaking about you, Seth, and you, Anthony, and me one day when we're passed away. Who's that person going to be? But most importantly, what are they going to say?
Very good. Wow.
Very good.
All right. Couple quick questions before we end. 20 years from now, we're sitting here talking. Where is Jeff Linn? What's he doing?
I'd love to be doing exactly what I'm doing right now. Contented. My Graham used to say it all the time. I'd say, Graham, how you doing? She'd say, I'm contented, honey. And right now in my life, I'm contented. Like, I'm really happy with my job at FBM. I love what I do. I'm still able to reach people, coach people, still want to be involved in the sport of wrestling. And really the only thing I really want to drastically change is I want to continually help our community, Mercer County, Lawrence County, Pennsylvania for that matter, because of our student loan debt issue and so many of these kids that are struggling to make it work, and to say, hey, you don't have to go to college. You can go to trade school, or you can go to community college, or maybe, Seth, maybe let's shoot for the stars. Harvard's your place. So helped a young man get to Harvard this year, which was great. So seeing kids go to Notre Dame and Harvard, it's awesome, right? But also helping a family not choose to go to a high-priced private school and go to BC3 or go to Penn State Shenango and save $30,000. That's just as good. Mm-hmm. So realistically, to go back to your question, I'd love to be doing just what I'm doing right now. I'm completely contented. I just want to continue to help others, influence others, and recognize others too. I think that's the other thing I didn't mention is, we really have to do a better job in our community of recognizing the good people that are working so damn hard in our community to make it better. And we all have to step up and say, you know what, today's a good day to do something good for each other and our community. So might as well start. So continually doing that.
Fantastic. Last question. This is a curveball. I don't think I sent this to you.
Okay.
You're able to go back in time and meet Jeff Linn at 10 years old. What advice do you give the 10-year-old Jeff Linn?
Don't click send.
Don't click send.
I've learned in my life that when I was early on in my career, that I let my emotions get the best of what was happening. And there were several times early on in my career where I sent emails that I shouldn't have sent, sharing my opinion, right, wrong, or indifferent. I clicked send, and I shouldn't have clicked send. And so some of those life lessons that you learn, just the humility part, it's not always about you, dude. I would have told my 10-year-old self, like, realize that it's not always about you, and think about the other person. Don't make assumptions. Really, really forgive others and forgive yourself. That's the advice I'd give my 10-year-old self. But don't click send.
Jeff, I can tell you, and I'm sure I speak for Seth, you've been enlightening and a joy to be on the show. We are glad you made time. We're going to be wrapping up the Engaged podcast here at Faith Presbyterian Church. This is our Leader2Leader series, and we hope that this blesses you, and we look forward to the next time we're together.
Absolutely.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate you guys.